Representative Talarico, welcome back to the program. Speaker Burrows said the most consequential bill that the chamber passed was public school funding, $8.5 billion for public school funding. As a former educator, and I'm curious, am I as a parent going to see any physical change to Texas public schools with this money?
Well, unfortunately, this school finance package is woefully inadequate and it doesn't meet the moment. We have a historic school funding crisis in the state of Texas. Public schools haven't gotten an increase in funding since 2019, and so they're in a historic hole. This school finance bill, although I'm happy we're making some progress, doesn't get our schools out of that hole. It doesn't even catch us up to 2019 funding levels. It doesn't catch our schools up from the inflation that we've seen over the last 6 years. So although I'm happy there's some relief, we should have done a lot more to get our schools back to that baseline.
And about half of this money is $4 billion for teacher pay raises, long awaited teacher pay raises. How's that being received?
Well, it's not a pay raise for all teachers. Although we have a historic $24 billion budget surplus in the state of Texas, we have more than enough money to give every Texas teacher a pay raise. This school finance package only gives a pay raise to some teachers. And I'm happy for our more experienced teachers because they desperately need a pay raise, and this is well deserved and long overdue. But we should have given an across the board pay raise to all of our teachers because, quite frankly, we're seeing the most turnover, the most resignations from new teachers, teachers who have less than 5 years of experience in the classroom. And so if we want to attract the best and brightest to be teachers in Texas public schools, if we want to retain the best and brightest in Texas public schools, then we should have done an across the board teacher pay raise. And honestly, it's inexcusable that we didn't do a pay raise for all of our Texas teachers.
You said that this piece of legislation doesn't meet the moment here. What's the best part of it, do you think?
Well, I think there is some funding for special education. The state of Texas has been underfunding special education by about $2 billion a biennium, and this will help close that gap. And so I'm very thankful that that funding is in this bill. But again, we should have done a lot more. The comptroller said we needed about $15 billion just to get our schools back to 2019 buying power after all the inflation. This package only gets us about 8.5 billion. And that sounds like a big number in the state of Texas. All these numbers sound big because we're a big state. But when you put it in context, you understand that it's inadequate and doesn't meet the crisis that our schools are in.
Republicans in the legislature also finally passed 10 commandments going into school classrooms that they've been trying to pass for years here. The ACLU already says it's going to sue to block this. Which way do you think courts will go on it?
Well, this bill is blatantly unconstitutional. The First Amendment of our Constitution creates a separation of church and state in the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause. And by the legislature using their governmental power to elevate one religious tradition over all the rest, that's establishing a state religion. It's putting up a religious doctrine on the walls of public buildings. And this is not only unconstitutional and un-American, it's also deeply unchristian. We as Christians are called to love our neighbors as ourselves, especially our neighbors who are different from us. The Hindu student, the Buddhist student, the atheist student who sits in a classroom is our neighbor, and we should love them as ourselves. And I'll tell you, forcing our religion down their throats with governmental action is not love. And so I think this not only violates the Constitution, it also violates the core teachings of Christianity.
Let's talk about THC for a moment. Republican leaders are doing a victory lap now for that full ban on THC that they got. The Senate really wanted this. The House finally agreed to it. But you're getting some different reaction from some of your constituents.
Yeah, instead of regulating this booming industry in our state, Republicans have put in place a total and complete ban. Texans are seeking relief. Our seniors are looking for relief from chronic pain. Our veterans are looking for relief from PTSD. And this form of relief, THC, is less dangerous than alcohol and less addictive than cigarettes. But for some reason, the legislature is banning this form of relief now instead of regulating it. I posted a TikTok the night that the ban was passed in the Texas House. I woke up the next morning, it had more than 1 million views. Right now, it's about 12 million views. So I think that Dan Patrick and Greg Abbott don't understand how unpopular this ban is across the state of Texas among Democrats and Republicans alike.
Representative bail reform did not pass, a big priority of the governors here. Do you think that issue alone might bring lawmakers back to a special session this summer?
Well, I think the legislature has done enough damage in the 5 months that we've been given. And so I hope we're not called back for a special. Democrats and Republicans came together on 5 bills that reformed our bail system, which needs reform. But unfortunately, the governor tried this last bill, which again violates the Constitution. We can ensure public safety and honor the Constitution at the same time. I hope the governor will bring legislators together from both parties to make this happen instead of grandstanding on this issue and trying to score political points.
Are you expecting any special session to be called?
I'm praying every day there's no special session. We'll see if those prayers are answered in a few days.
I don't think you're the only one doing that. A couple last questions here for you. What, in your opinion, what would you consider the most consequential piece of legislation that was passed by the legislature?
Sadly, the most consequential bill passed in this session is the private school voucher scam. This bill will take billions of dollars out of our neighborhood public schools in the years to come and funnel that money to wealthy parents who are already sending their kids to private school. It's a massive transfer of wealth from the bottom and the middle to the very top. And that's the last thing we need in this economy. So sadly, I would say the private school voucher scam that will defund our public schools is the most consequential bill that passed this session.
Can Democrats point to any successes?
Absolutely. Democrats have been hard at work trying to pass bills that actually improve people's lives. We're not interested in defunding schools or banning THC. We're interested in lowering the cost of housing, expanding healthcare access, lowering the cost of childcare. These are the things that Texans want us to focus on, and that's what we've been doing on the floor of the House every day. In fact, I passed a bill just 2 days ago that will remove some of the unnecessary regulations we have on housing in the state and allow us to build more housing, drive down the cost so that more Texans can realize the American dream of homeownership. That's the kind of common sense policies that Republicans and Democrats want the legislature focused on, not these crazy culture war distractions.
Representative, thank you for the time. Great to see you.
Thank you, sir.